All right, so I've got 5 minutes now to get on to bikes and active transport, which I started earlier on today.
You need to get straight on that bike.
Get on my bike, that's right. So, yes, the multiple reasons why the strategy fell short of achieving its aspirational target. Actually, I think I asked that question, didn't I? Look, so I'll move on from that you noted in your answer to my questions, I noticed that there are staff who work on active transport matters as they arise. How often do they arise? How much have they arisen, say, in the last 6 months since the cycling strategy has been completed?
Catherine Geiger, General Manager, Land Transport Market Reform. There's a number of staff across the department who work on cycling matters, so ranging from safety issues through to assessing infrastructure projects where there are cycling components. In terms of specifically around the previous Bicycle Council and the now Cycling and Walking Australia-New Zealand, it doesn't occupy a lot of time, and the reason for that is that this is cycling and walking. Active transport is largely a matter for states and territories who are quite actively involved.
So in terms of the number of staff, I mean, how much staff time per month? Say we've had almost 6 months since no longer having a national cycling strategy. How many different bits of cycling advice or action on cycling projects would departmental staff have undertaken?
So within the context of my team, it's not very much, but there might be other...
What do you mean by not very much?
I mean, over the last 6 months, something in the order of, say a week or, a few weeks. It wouldn't be significant.
So a week of... so the equivalent of one full-time staff person for a week over a range of projects. So five staff days. So
that's just in relation to the wrap-up of the Bicycle Council and in relation to the Cycling and Walking Australia-New Zealand, but that wouldn't take into account safety issues or cities issues or where there's assessment of infrastructure that has cycling components in it, because that's spread across the department.
So would you be able to do an assessment, maybe say as they arise? I'm just trying to get a sense of how much resources the federal government is putting into looking at cycling projects.
Largely this is a matter that we leave to states and territories in terms of the specific strategies around increasing active transport, but in terms of infrastructure investment, it would be difficult to measure because the assessment of the proposals would be done, that include cycling or active transport, would be done as part of the assessment of the overarching piece of infrastructure. So it would be difficult to step that out.
Okay, but a small amount is basically all you're able to summarise it as then?
Essentially.
Okay. You noted in your answer to my question, I noticed that the federal financial assistance grants to local governments are what you see as a funding stream for active transport. Is that correct?
They are able to use that, should they choose, towards active transport infrastructure.
And firstly, those grants have effectively reduced, haven't they, because they've been frozen? We've had an indexation freeze on them. Is that the case?
Hasn't it been
We'll take this on notice and double check, but my understanding is the indexation freeze was lifted, I think a year or two ago, but we'll double check for you. But my understanding is that, yes, it was lifted.
Okay, and do you track what percentage of those grants are actually spent on cycling and walking infrastructure?
Not specifically for the financial assistance grants. Some states and territories do track how much they spend specifically on cycling infrastructure, but because it's generally an integral part of broader projects, we don't track it specifically. You
don't track it. So a small number of staff not being tracked. And then you also know that the government's investment in infrastructure can include in relevant projects the building of new cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, but there's no requirement for these projects to include, is there?
No.
No. So I've got 1 minute, haven't I?
Well,
I've got 1 minute and
I'll
one
tell you
more
what,
question.
Sandra, don't have